It's the Ryan Raventhal Show. With weekly special guests, up-to-date music news, and a special report from Area 51. It's Ryan Raventhal.
Hello, this is another podcast with the Ryan Raventhal Show, and we're going to talk about Eddie Van Halen this time. Probably the greatest guitar player ever, and I'm going to have a great guest here with Derek Nelson, who's an amazing guitar player, and we're going to just talk about Van Halen and Eddie Van Halen's legacy. So hang on here. We're going to bring them into the podcast. So here we go. All right. So welcome to the podcast. So great to have you here. And it's we're doing a tribute to Eddie Van Halen. So
yeah, as you should.
Exactly. I'm like, who's better than Eddie Van Halen? As far as I'm concerned, best guitar player ever. And
yeah,
Eddie Van Halen was pretty much the guy who got me into playing guitar way back in the 80s. So like back when my father had a cassette tape of the 1984 album.
Mm-hmm.
And basically that's the first time I heard like whoa, what? Like what? Like, because before that it was like the Eagles, the Rolling Stones, and the Beatles and everything. But I'm like, then there was Eddie Van Halen. It's like that can be done with the guitar, like, and it was pretty much between him and Billy F. Gibbons from ZZ Top. Mm-hmm. The two main guys that got me into playing guitar.
I'd say in general, like those it was like Angus Young before Van Halen broke. Like he was the biggest guitar god around.
AC/DC is my all-time favorite band.
Yeah.
But I mean, I didn't get into AC/DC until maybe the early 90s.
Yeah.
You know, back with like the Razor's Edge.
For sure.
And, you know, Thunderstruck and everything. That's when I first really got into AC/DC. But back before then, even before I picked up a guitar, it was Eddie Van Halen in 1984. And didn't really even have the other previous 5 albums, you know, with David Lee Roth, until really the 90s, you know, when I started actually getting into all the albums. But it was that album, 1984, that first sparked it off of like, whoa, what's this?
What is he doing? Right? Like this is what he was doing. No one was doing, right? Like no one in the popular culture was really doing that. Like when it comes, like obviously he gets his notoriety for tapping and all that kind of stuff. When it comes to tapping, like he wasn't the first guy to actually come up with it. There was many other people before that, right? Not to discredit him, but Adrian Belew from King Crimson got a lot of heat for saying that, and he wasn't taking it away from Van Halen's, you know, innovation, but there's bass players, jazz players from decades ago that were doing the two-handed tap kind of technique to access the higher register of the fretboard, but none of them really took it to the level that Halen did. Or you'd know about it, right? Everyone would fucking know about it. Halen just blew it out of the water. He took that and he added in the classical elements, you know, the classical music elements, and it would tap it out like that with a shit ton of distortion, which even at that time, you got to think the amps at that time, like to push the amps to get that kind of distortion and the techniques that he did in the studio to get that sound are mind-boggling. No one was doing that. It was like, if you look at AC/DC, it's like maxed out plexi amps or JMPs, bridged, whatnot, and they're just full tilt, and it's just that you hear the room shaking when you hear AC/DC's like first albums. you can hear that fucking room like cracking. With Halen, he had this thing called a variac, and it basically turns the voltage down that's coming out of the wall to the amp, because a lot of the older amps only needed 110 volts, what have you. But we get about 120 coming out of our wall. So what he does is he turned that thing down to 85, I believe. So he's giving it less voltage. So it gave it like this weird sag. So that's the brown sound that everyone talks about. It's like a plexi amp that's undervolted. So it creates this kind of like this weird dirty sag. And like, who the hell was doing that, right? Like to do that in the studio, to come up with these sounds, to make that amp sound the way it did, because people are always, ask any Van Halen nut, any guitar player, they're always dying to get or trying to get that brown sound, the ultimate brown sound. And you know, obviously you have to have those old amps, which is hard to come by, and then you need a variac, which you can get anywhere. But that, like, think about that, it's very innovative and like built on necessity, trying to get that tone, like where there's a lot of gain, and then obviously using that the phase that no one was really using at the time, especially the way he was using it. Like in the jam bands, they're using it, but he was using that thick fucking phase and just layering on those taps, and it gave it another element, because it sweeps those frequencies. So it kind of gives it this musical element where it's just one guy on a guitar tapping one string, right? And then all of a sudden he's getting a world of sound. Like crap like that. Like it gives it a different atmosphere when you're doing that. No one was doing that. So he broke the mold on all those albums, because you hear guys just shredding. Like who was on Michael Jackson's Steve Lukather. Like he was another guy that was that incredible, that kind of prowess, but he didn't break the mold like Halen did, with that kind of tapping technique, with that veracity, all the crazy Whammybar tricks that he would do. Like no one was doing that in a wide open atmosphere. It was kind of more in like the underground, and to take that up and to bring it to where he did is like we have, every guitar player I think right now has to thank him for that. Anyone that ever taps the other fretboard, because you see a lot of guitar players doing that day. A lot of classical guys are doing that. A lot of the acoustic, like John Noam. Like sure, there was other guys doing it, but you can't tell me that you didn't at least get inspired by Van Halen doing the tap technique, you know, and all the stuff that he did.
Like David Gilmour from Pink Floyd.
Yeah.
After he heard of like a lot of Eddie stuff, and he was like had like modifications from like the pickups, the whammy bar and everything.
Hey, he built a guitar out of
By
nothing. No one had that guitar, right?
Yeah.
You have to build things to make them sound what you have in your head. These guys had something in their head, and they out of necessity built that. We wouldn't have had guitars, you know. We wouldn't have the whammy bar, you know. You wouldn't have any of these things like on the like think of Dimebag. Like we wouldn't have Dimebag. We wouldn't have like guys like that around if it weren't for Halen. And we wouldn't have guitars like this where we can do sweet ass tricks. You know, look at Steve Vai. Look what he's done with.
Yeah, the guitar you have there definitely reminds me of Dimebag. Okay. Dimebag Darrell from Pantera.
The dime, the Razorback dime.
Definitely. And like, remember the Dimebag and Eddie connection?
Yeah, and he gave his Bumblebee EVH Frankenstein guitar to Dimebag, and like in his casket when they buried him. So he's got an original guitar.
Put it right in his Kiss casket.
Yeah, can't beat that, right?
Exactly. Like look how his older brother, the drummer.
Yeah.
Just said like, you know, like even how Dime would say, like if he knew that you know, when he died, Eddie Van Halen was gonna put that guitar in his casket, he'd be like, kill me now.
Yeah.
Just like, wow, what, that's just amazing. Like,
yeah, like that's how dedicated he was. And you know, there's like I'm gonna pick two guys that I think that that Van Halen, like that took the torch from Van Halen and kind of changed it up a bit, and like definitely one of them is Dimebag. He kind of took Van Halen's technique and fucking ran with it. Because like with Van Halen, like when it comes to like whammy bar tricks, and like this is like the main thing with Dime is like his whammy bar tricks were bar none. Is that like Van Halen only goes down on his bar. His whammy isn't a full floating, so it doesn't come up. You can't do any of the high squeals or any kind of shit like that. So when he did this horsey sounds, it was basically dropping the bar and then bending, pitch harmonicking the second fret or third fret, and bending it up as you bring it up the bar, and you kind of get that woo, like horsey sound, right? With Dimebag, he was able to go all the way up. You always see him pull down on the bar like that and get high shit like that, which you know, as small as a change that is, it's taking that to the next step and adding in crazy shit, like all those horsey sounds and all the pinch harmonics that Van Halen did. Dimebag did them, you know, 100 times more distortion, more this, more that, more veracity, and definitely took it to the next step, and always tapping and all that kind of stuff, right? The second guitar player I would say that took it and ran with it would be guys like Steve Vai, right? They kind of took it in a more what's the word, more vocal sense, where Vai's bar tricks are more like you just like he'll do little things like that, manipulate the bar just to bring up the note half a pitch, or do, you know, things like that. And then obviously he has full floating, so he goes full down and full up as well. But you look at those guys, and they all, without Van Halen, really wouldn't have the fucking careers that they have, or the ideas that they took to make their own. And you look at guys like Steve Vai, like he's one of the great guitar players. Dimebag, another great guitar player. Like they're all in that echelon, probably because of Eddie Van Halen, right? You know, if it weren't for Van Halen, who would have opened those doors? All right, like we can't. It was Van Halen. We got to take it because he's fucking amazing. And think of all the stuff that he did, all of the cool stories, all the rock stories. Like
one of my favorite Eddie Van Halen quotes was I remember watching back in the '90s, like Much Music interview, and he's like he's talking about like, hey, I'm a trained piano player. I'm a trained classical piano player. I don't know what the hell I'm doing with guitar.
Yeah, he's not a very theoretical guy. Like his biggest influence was like Eric Clapton, right? Like when you hear Van Halen play, where the hell do you hear Eric Clapton? And some of his blues licks you do, but like think about that. Like his biggest influence was Eric Clapton, and that blew out the doors for Van Halen. And then you get Van Halen, like pretty cool, right? And then Van Halen sparks Steve Vai, Dimebag, fucking million other guitar players that tap, and
but
Paul
also, when I was playing like in grade 11, I really got known for playing guitar. Like I was a super bully kid, and one day when I really started learning after a couple of years of guitar lessons, and I really learned the solo and everything, and the first time I really got comfortable in the music room, and our music room was right behind the cafeteria. Like there was a stage was in the cafeteria in our high school, and the music room was right behind. And so one time in lunch hour, you know, everyone was eating lunch there, and I was like hooked up to this big keyboard amp, and I really started playing. I opened up with the riff of "Set the World Afire" from Megadeth.
Oh, nice.
You know, from the album "So Far, So Good, So What," and I really started like I started playing that riff.
So you scared the shit out of them.
Loud, like it was ripping it out, and like I'll never forget it as long as I live. All these kids came through the music room like who the fuck is playing this guitar? And the last person they expected to see was me. You know, the big, you know, hot fat kid.
Yeah.
And, you know, the dork and our
Oh, is
kid
it?
and everything. And they're like, oh, what? It's him ripping it out. And like, and they just sat there, stood there, opened the door. Like,
Yeah.
holy shit. And
Oh.
from that moment on, I was never bullied in high school.
Beauty of music, right?
Knowing that, but I was like ripping off negative. Just
Yeah.
ripping out the negative.
Fucking right.
And, you know, also like Van Halen stuff. Just I was just like constantly ripping out the guitar. Every break in high school.
Best healer, right?
Oh,
One of the great-
definitely.
Hells yeah. What do you know anything about? I don't know, his guitars, all that kind of shit. Like how many times he mucked about with that Frankenstein and all the different color, all the paint schemes, all the ridiculousness in there.
Oh yeah, definitely the Frankenstein.
Yeah. Right. Been through so much.
He
And
was
it's
so
just
Eddie was so poor. You know, he just like bought himself like a body, and then bought himself like
well, yeah, it was that.
neck, and just like basically built himself a guitar.
Yeah, and they had the old Fender tremolos and all that kind of shit, and he was snapping the crap out of them, breaking them. Like, yeah, man, we need to make something better. And he took that idea of like with the violin, with the fine tuners and all that kind of stuff. So you got like it's perfectly tuned. You lock that shit down, you can do anything you want because you couldn't do that with the Fenders. It was only meant to do like little. Oh, sorry. Just stupid shit like that, right? Little vibrato tricks. And like if you're gonna try to do like you're gonna break the tremolo. So you can imagine like how many of those bridges he went through before, you know, needing something like the Kaler or the Floyd Rose, you know, like to even like think of that. Like I'm when I play guitar and I'm like, I think I got everything I need. Like I don't know of any other additional thing that you would need on a guitar now. Like it kind of he pushed it to that limit. And like what else is there? Like different intonation techniques and all that kind of stuff. But other than that, there hasn't been anything as innovative as like the Whammy, the Floyd Rose. That thing's been around forever because of him, right? Like I love like I know a lot of guys don't like whammy bars and all that kind of shit. But man, it's a lot of fun. You can do some cool shit with it.
It takes a certain setup.
Yeah, you got to know how to set it up and all that kind of shit. But
because like
it's
guitar can go right out of tune.
Well, yeah, but that's also why you have the locking knot, right? So like
Exactly.
that's like the big help there. And again, that was like the invention there was the having to lock that down, so you can actually do all the like dump the bar down. So you're hitting the string, and it's still going to be in tune. You're just dumping that bar so the strings hit everything. And if you did that with a Fender, you'd be toast, right? You'd just be like, fuck, like, what was that, you know? So like to even think about that and to be conscious of that, to make that happen, and to be like, hey, I need something that like locks and can also stay in tune and doesn't break every time I fucking play it. Like that's some cool shit. There's so much fun you can do with it. And I'm not that great at it. It's been a while. I used to do a lot of whammy stuff, but lately with there's not really much whammy shit involved in Jello, other than like in Carnival rolls, right? So like I brought it back out for that, but it's definitely a technique you got to keep up on because it's really hard. It's a lot of playing off that spring, and there's a lot of nuances to it, and you don't always nail it, but. Like it's fucked to do all that kind of shit, and like the way he did it with such clarity with all the amps that he was using and how clean he was with that shit. it's even tough to try to want to do it. Fucking love this thing though. I haven't played this guitar in a long time. Here I got another one. This other one I have is a Van Halen body. It's basically like a 7-string version of his Frankenstein. So it's his body
sweet.
at the same spot for his input jack. Yeah, it's a 7-string version of that. I did the swirl paint, but other than that, like the headstock, everything's identical to that Frankenstein, but it's a 7-string with a whammy bar.
Sweet.
It's a little different with the 7.
I've never played a 7-string guitar.
Oh,
Played 12-string guitar.
I got an 8 here too. A headless 8-string. That thing is just super low, but they're fun. I haven't played this guitar in a while either. Same thing. This one can barely go up, so I try not to. But it's the same Floyd basically that he has on his Frankenstein. But yeah, man, Van Halen all the way.
Like 25 years ago, my guitar instructor, I remember a couple lessons. We did a couple of Van Halen songs. Like we learned, one lesson was Panama, and another lesson was Hoffer Teacher. And he used to show me how these songs were played.
Yeah. Right? Like that. He made a song.
But it was also like learning a Van Halen song is like, okay, it's basically you do an imitation.
Yeah.
You can't really do it the way Eddie did.
Yeah, that guy had a guitar.
Gotta do an imitation of it. Like,
yeah, people have different ways of doing it. Some people use the index finger to tap. Steve Vai uses the middle finger to tap. I like the middle finger just because it's longer, and then the idea that you can still hold onto your pick and tap.
Now I was never playing notes and chords and solos the way you're supposed to. Like literally like bend my fingers. So I always had like my own way of doing things, like, but it would sound the same.
Yeah. And
so got a lot of professional guitar players who look at me like, oh, that's not how you're supposed to do it. Like, well, sounds good, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. I think it's subjective. Like I'm a teacher too, and like you try to correct things like that, but if at certain points, like if it fucking works, don't fix it, right? And like the only time that you might have an issue is if you're trying to hit something that you can't, and then you got to move your hand into a different position. Like a lot of guys, even Van Halen does it. Like he'll use these 3 fingers and kind of negate this a lot of the times and just stretch it over, because a lot of people like these 3 fingers are a lot easier to like work and to get in shape, right? The pinky's always your weakest link, so a lot of guys will just stretch it over instead of doing.
Yeah, right? I always do that, like stretching over the 3rd finger instead of the 4th finger. The pinky. You know, not everything, but like a lot of things.
Back to like the tapping thing, like the guy, like I like what Randy Rhoads did with it, because you can alternate between the two, and it sounds pretty sweet. So like Randy would double tap. That was basically like his main difference, where Van Halen was always like right. That's like Halen's thing, but like if you take it to like Randy Rhoads, he was more like So he basically did the same thing, but he double tapped it, and it gives it a whole other sound, which is fucking so cool. Again, Van Halen. Like it all comes down to him. Like this guy sparked so much, right? Look at Tosin Abasi. Like he's the newest guitar god. Like he well deserved. He still has elements of Van Halen in him too. He still adds a lot of tapping. Like it just, how many decades is that? It's insane, and it's gonna live on and on and on and on.
Yeah, ironically, another one of my favorite guitar players is Nuno Betancourt.
Yeah, Nuno.
He was a guitar player from Extreme.
Yeah, I was his tech a few times in Ontario.
Oh, sweet. Ironically, of course, Gary Sharon from Extreme was lead singer of Van Halen for one album back in
no one talks about that. I don't think that album ever really happened. That tour never happened.
Van Halen 3. So I like to how in their rock and roll Hall of Fame induction, how Michael Anthony did give Gary Sharon some props.
Oh, for sure. Like he was put in a bad spot. Like Van Halen couldn't suffer another fucking breakup or another singer, right? Like and they went ahead and as good as Sharon is, it just didn't work. Even if the music was good, it's not going to work. Like people want either David Lee Roth or Sammy Hagar, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. Like how many bands out there are like can go past their original lead singer and be successful?
Like for AC/DC,
AC/DC, Alice in Chains.
Yeah, for sure. That dude's
been successful, but I'm like, there's not many.
Yeah, a handful at best. Yeah.
So I'm like, so Van Halen, it's been like 2 successful waves of that band.
Which is
just try it a third time. You're like, it's not really.
To get the second time is a fucking Hail Mary, right? Especially in that age when everyone's just idolizing everybody. Everyone wants that singer, so you get him out of the picture. You're like, oh fuck. They brought in Sammy Hagar, who's already a fucking heartthrob kind of guy, right? He was already huge. He already had his own success with Montrose, right? In his own stuff. So it was a good combination, and they wrote some really good songs. I know a lot of people don't want to hear that, but like those Sammy Hagar fucking tunes are.
No, hey, I like
fucking great, and like Hagar's voice is phenomenal. David Lee Roth can't sing. He's like a mockery vaudeville kind of guy, and it works. It fucking worked when he was young, but if that kind of guy doesn't maintain a voice and like learn actually how to hit keys and all that stuff, it becomes what Van Halen just before he passed, like that tour with David Lee Roth was horrible, right? Like David Lee Roth cannot hold it together anymore, but you know who can?
Exactly.
He's still killing it, man. I met them.
Sammy Hagar was like, was it like 73, 74 now? And he still nails those notes. It's like he's still fucking phenomenal.
I teched their show at the casino here in the Falls when they came here with the Circle. So it's Michael Anthony, Jason Bonham, Sammy Hagar, and Vic Johnson on guitar. And man, like as much as like we worked it and all that stuff, I had to watch that show. I had to go up. I wanted to watch this fucking thing because I want to see how Hagar, how he sounds. And he's with Michael Anthony. So like, how could you not beat that harmony section?
Yeah, definitely.
Like, this was 2 years ago, 3 years ago. It was spot fucking on. It was like, man, he still has it. Both him and Michael Anthony still got the voice, still got the fucking charisma and the songs and everything, man. Like,
oh yeah, like Mike Anthony was like a big part of Van Halen.
Yeah, the
really.
Section.
Like, I was kind of bummed when they fired him and and Eddie wanted his son, Wolfgang, in on bass, which I totally understand. Like he I was
Well,
one of the Van
it is.
Halen family, and him wanted his son in the band. I'm like, I totally get it, like, but still, it was like, yeah, like Med Anthony was still
Yeah.
a huge part of that band.
But at least he had a home with Sammy.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes.
And
Well,
I was a fan of the Sammy Hagar Van Halen years
mhm.
too. I'm like I was recently listening to because I always listen to Trunk Nation, Eddie Trunk on Sirius XM. I listen to that religiously every day,
On the
and
G.
but like he really like that's how I found out how Eddie Van Halen died. It was live on the air with Eddie Trunk, and he found out live on the air. Like what the fuck? But yeah, like the week after Eddie died, he did the like he was first they were ranking the first 6 Van Halen albums, with David Lee Roth, from 1978 to 1984, and
Yeah.
they're ranking all those albums. But then they ranked the Hagar albums, 4 Sammy Hagar albums, and including Sammy Hagar's own picks.
Yep.
But everyone ranked the album 1995 album Balance last. And to me, that's one of my favorite Sammy Hagar Van Halen albums.
There's
Because
some.
that was the album when I was in high school.
Yep.
When I was really learning how to play guitar and everything, and so that's really a big album to me. Like,
There's a lot of good
how
guitar
can you
work.
go like, especially like even though it's a simple guitar riff, like "Don't Tell Me What Love Can Do."
Yeah.
Bum, bum, bum. We have like Eddie has the pick sideways, like
Mhm.
scraping
Yeah.
the string selling. It was just great song. And but there's a lot of like even Sammy Hagar says like, oh, it's a dark album, because that's the band was starting to break up. And,
Yeah.
him and Eddie couldn't even be in the same room. But I mean, it's a great
Turned out-
album. It's a great guitar album.
Yeah. Great. Oh man. Even that song that they did for Twister, even though it was like that was like their
Exactly. That's actually one of my favorites. They're Humans Being. Yeah, Humans Being. I love that song. That's the last song they ever did. With Van Halen and Sammy Hagar.
Yeah.
That's a great song. It's like
Oh man, so good.
that came out in July, and then like the next month they appear on the MTV Movie Awards with David Lee Roth out of nowhere to
Yeah, because
promote
they're
their greatest hits.
Yeah, and then they're like, "Oh, we're gonna do a new song," and then they just did that with Sammy. But man, if they did more of that style with Sammy during that era, like fuck, would like if they did more of that song kind of as a theme for an album, damn, that could have been a really cool fucking album. It would have been a little bit more like aggressive, and like Sammy sounds good, angry, you know, like his voice on that track is great.
Oh yeah, literally I think that's possibly one of my favorites of that whole the Sammy Hagar Van Halen era. Humans Being. Such a great guitar solo and everything. It's a phenomenal song.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I wish they did more of that. Because like even the new album, it was kind of old, like a mishmash of old demos and kind of not really anything new, right? Would have been nice to hear another Sammy album.
Yeah,
But
it was sad. It's like that was the last big album. Balance. Of course, they had the Van Halen 3 in 1998 with Gary Sharon, singer of Extreme, and then they tried to get, of course, David Lee Roth and Sammy Hagar back in it was like early 2000s did a tour together a failed tour, and then Van Halen tried to get back together. They did a short tour with Sammy Hagar.
Yeah.
Of course, then they got back together and David Lee Roth in 2007, and then did a tour in 2012, and then released a new album with David Lee Roth. Forget the name of it. A different kind of truth. That's what it's. A different kind of truth. And then in 2015, their last tour, they released a Live in Tokyo double live album.
Oh yeah. They did.
And of course,
Production on that album's great.
yeah, that was the last thing they ever released. And
Sorry. Yeah. You want to know why he lost his deal with Ernie Ball? I'm sure it's a rumor, but it seems pretty legit. I heard this years and years ago. So you know, he used to like have Ernie Ball guitars, like the Axis, sorry, fucking gorgeous guitars, and then it turned into the PV Wolfgang, then turned into the EVH or the Van Halen Fender Wolfgang. Well, when he was with Ernie Ball, he fucked Ernie Ball's wife. That's how he lost his deal with Ernie Ball. I believe they were both married at the time, so I think he was with Valerie at the time. And yeah, that's the rumor. That's pretty wild, though. You lost your guitar endorsement because you fucked Ernie Ball's wife, and then you get another endorsement, and then you get another endorsement. Like you're Van Halen, you're never gonna dry up of endorsements.
oh, I'm not surprised. I'm like, hey, him and Valerie Bertinelli both divorced because they both admitted like they were cheating on each other.
Oh yeah, well,
on both sides, they're like, yeah, well, they weren't both unfaithful. So,
oh yeah, well, he was living the rock and roll life, man.
Oh yeah,
and he sobered up, he was still doing it. Like fuck, kudos to him. Because there's that one horrible Nam video where he just looks like he's fucking homeless, and he just like he shows up and he's just out of his mind. He still shreds, still fucking shreds, but like he's still just phenomenal. But like he's just not there, and it's just so sad. And then it was like a couple years after that, I think it's when he had the first bout with the cancer in his tongue.
There's some videos on YouTube, and like you see him like doing the tour of there's him doing the tour of the 5150 studios.
Oh yeah.
And stuff like, and that's when like he was really into like drinking and stuff like that, and like he was starting to lose his teeth and everything. He's like he really.
Well, he used to, again, rumor, but he used to walk around with like a Tylenol bottle, like just full of Coke, and just cock him back anytime he wanted to, right? Like that's, I'm sure he's not the only one that had that that access to that kind of shit, but like, man, that was like those guys were doing back then, man, just getting wild and doing crazy shit.
Especially in the 80s. I remember the Motley Crue drummer, Tommy Lee, talking about how he have a strum tech like leaned up with like a little bottle cap full of coke, and he'd like lean over like
I believe the Eagles did the thing,
but he couldn't do too much, and also like he couldn't do heroin or anything because I'm like, okay, like he's like he's the drummer, he's like drum machine, so I'm like setting the pace for the band, right? So I'm like, too much coke, and all of a sudden everyone's speeding up. The whole band's speeding up, and if the drummer's on heroin, everyone's like slowing down.
Right? Honestly. Yeah, I think Joe Walsh had that too. I think he had like a line of like lines of coke on his Marshall, so you just like go over, sniff his amp, and then come back and be ready to go.
But it's hilarious when you talk about Van Halen, the whole things would go on with Eddie Van Halen's guitar solos. Sammy Hagar would go underneath the stage, you know, and the groupies.
Yeah.
They full on admitted that and everything. Like, yeah, like, oh yeah, it was drink Eddie solo, you know.
Only one's
have
doing
a 15-minute break.
Oh yeah, Eddie, don't worry. Take a half hour if you need. Take as long as you need.
Yeah.
Or fucking
pick girls out of the audience, roadies.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, bring them backstage. You know.
Just hear
Eddie solo.
Eddie's just rocking out. Next thing underneath him is just fucking debauchery. Yeah, you just keep tapping, Eddie. I'm busy.
Oh, did you see that classic video back in the 5150 tour with you know, Eddie solo? And he's sitting there like, you know, doing the cigarette circles. And he's like, you know, just puts the cigarette in the guitar. And he's like, it's like,
you can't do that with vapes these days. You can't be that.
It's like, just makes it look like so easy. It just tucks it in. Yeah. It just makes it look so freaking easy.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that was the reason I got into smoking, just so I can fucking sit and put my guitar and just sit there and fucking look cool as shit. Yeah.
Yeah. So what's your favorite Van Halen album?
Ooh, shit.
I know it's a hard decision.
Can I just cheat and say the greatest hits? A little bit of everything. Fuck. I hate these questions. Really hard. Because there's something from all of them. Like I guess like, you know, first albums for any band, kind of, right? Like it's the open. Like for you, it was Balance, right? Because that's the era. I guess it'd be the same.
Even though that's not my favorite Van Halen album, that was like
you kind of
my favorite Van Hagar album.
God damn.
I always go with the first Van Halen album, really.
Well, that's what I'm thinking.
That was like I always say you have your whole life to make your first album. Like what a killer album that was. You know, like opens up with the Running with the Devil, and then it goes into Eruption, and then You Really Got Me. It's just Janie's crying, like it's killer debut album.
You know what? Women and Children First. Yeah, I'm gonna go with that. First album, obviously, because it's iconic, but I think Women and Children First got some fucking heavy tunes on it.
And ironically, like when I was talking about before with Eddie Trunk, people ranking the first 6 Van Halen albums with David Lee Roth, first 6 albums, and a lot of people put Women and Children First at the top.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's really it's like well written. It's got a little bit of all the elements from the early days and whatnot. I don't know. It's a really well put together album. Heavy as shit too. It's got a lot of heavy riffs on there.
I remember back in 21 years ago, 1999, I was playing guitar with this band who was huge on Van Halen, and the biggest song they wanted me to play was Pound Cake.
Yeah.
From for Unlawful Carnal. And like, you want me to fucking put a drill through my guitar?
Did you
like, fuck, no, I'm not gonna do that.
Did you hear the in Back Alley Dentist? They asked me to. They're like, can you because there was already a solo in it, and it was very like a traditional Jello solo, but it's Bill's like and this is how he explained it to me. This is how he wanted the solo. So like it obviously got the Van Halen. It has to have the Van Halen vibe to it, but it's like, can you do like a drill solo, like over your solo? Yeah, fuck it. Yeah, sure, I'll do it. So I had to make my guitar solo sound like make it sound like a drill, like a dentist drill, like it's getting fucking rammed in your mouth, right?
Yeah.
So it's nonsensical, like right. So it's literally that, and then a drill going over top of it. When I heard the playback, I'm in tears laughing because there's a fucking I am on an album doing a drill solo, and it's all again the Van Halen technique of getting that cordless drill. And there's a certain drill you have to use to get that sound. Like I have cordless drills and it worked, but there's a certain one with a certain amount of torque that you have to get that gives you that ramp up that actually goes and actually slows down. The new ones don't really do that. They just go and they just kind of die off. So you kind of have to like lower, like take your fucking finger off the trigger a bit, where these ones just slowly rotate it out. And so yeah, it was fun trying to mimic that. But like again, we have to have that one kind of drill that he was using. But yeah, can't use corded, has to be cordless or it doesn't make that fucking sound.
Yeah.
But having to do a drill solo, even to think about that, like I was asked to do that because Van Halen has done it before, but like how did Van Halen think, hey, this drill sounds pretty cool against my guitar, I should probably make a song with that. like that, even to conjure that kind of creativity up is fucked.
Yeah. You see this video. There's a stand-up comedian who lived with Van Halen during their short-lived Sammy Hagar reunion back in 2004.
Yeah.
And he talked about how he lived with like Van Halen for 4 months, and Eddie Van Halen with the cigarettes like
Just nonstop.
talk because like like I'm gonna get one of those black boxes for cables, stuff like. And Eddie Van Halen's like at the bowling alley. It's like, yeah, you want one of those black boxes for cable? Like, yeah, I can hook you up. It's like, really? You're Eddie Van Halen. It's like, yeah. It's like,
Right?
yeah, rich as fuck. Don't want to pay for cable. Fucking cable. Rich as fuck. Don't want to pay for cable. What's going on? Like, and how he's staying over at Eddie Van Halen's house, and then he's like, and he just wants he's bringing a girl over. It's like he brings over to like basically these guys staying at 5150 Studios, like on Eddie Van Halen's property, and he has to explain to this girl. Like the girl comes in, he's bringing this girl, and it's like, holy shit, your friend is like probably the biggest fucking Van Halen fan ever, huh? And he's kind of breaking to her, like, yeah, you hear that noise over in the other room? Yeah, that's fucking Van Halen.
Is she hearing
playing? Like, that's fucking Van Halen over in the other room playing. Like, don't mind.
Don't worry, buddy. Get your stuff. He's just going crazy in the back.
It's like, how fucking amazing would that be, right? Like, fucking just crashing at Eddie Van Halen's house in the 5150 Studios.
Yeah, don't mind that noise. It's just Eddie Van Halen in the background.
Don't mind the noise. This is fucking Van Halen in the other room. Like,
God, I can do that all day.
listen to that shit all day. I just back on a couple days ago, I bought a magazine at Eddie Van Halen tribute. It's like a 96-page magazine.
Yeah.
And Rolling Stone had one too for like $17.
Yeah.
But it wasn't as good. And they also have their top 100 guitar players of all time.
Mm-hmm.
And they have a horrible list.
They tend
guitar
to always.
players.
Yeah, they
Like
tend to always.
I think they rate Kurt Cobain as like the top 4 greatest guitar player ever. And while they have Angus Young at like 96, like who the fuck wrote this list? Like,
Yeah, like if the
like
category.
Jesus, really? Like,
which guitar players were better songwriters? Maybe, like, but not even.
Like, really? Like Kurt Cobain? Like, yeah, he was influential. Like his band. But
He
like
was.
guitar player, top
Yeah.
10, like top 5? Really? No. Like,
He was anti-guitar.
like they have like fucking like Angus Young and Slash and like between 90 and 100. Like the fuck? Like,
Yeah, I never understood those polls. It's kind of stupid.
like even my guitar instructor was always saying like, Jimi Hendrix. Like there's a lot of better guitar players than Jimi Hendrix. Yeah, he was influential and he changed a lot of things, but I'm like, as far as skill and everything, like Eddie Van Halen was eons better than Jimi Hendrix.
Different era though, right? Like I think you got to look at it in steps, and like if there wasn't like a Jimi Hendrix to make guitar oodles and oodles of fun as well, there wouldn't be guys like Eric Clapton to inspire Van Halen, right? I think all of that kind of has to. It's like that trickle down effect, right?
Yeah.
So they all deserve that. I think it should be chronologically. Like that's the best way to do. Like who's the best guitar player of this era? I mean, that kind of makes more sense than of all time, because time's not over. We still have a lot of time. There's going to be tons of good guitar players out there, and even I think more so now. I hope that just because there's a lot more lessons on YouTube. There's a lot more. There's not much guitar music. That's the fucking problem. We need more guitar music to get people back into playing guitar. There's always seems to be a lull, like every 5 to 8 years, that there's just no guitar because it's usually, electronic music takes over, or it's an expensive thing to get into, and it's kind of gotten cheaper now. So hopefully people get in playing more guitar and learning the electronic instruments and also the analog instruments for what they are. Because look what Van Halen, he did both, right? He was putting Fairlights through the Marshall plexis to give that sound, right, for jump and all that shit. Like that's an old synth going into a really cranked out Marshall. I mean, that's what people need to realize now is like how you achieve those sounds with analog, because when you have all these digital like VSTs and stuff like that, it's already done for you, right? All the EQing, all that beautiful stuff's done for you. You got to kind of take all that shit and tear it down, strip it down, and do like that kind of stuff. Put keyboards in the amps, pedals, all that kind of shit. Start mucking around more stuff. Do what guys did back in the day, because no one's really doing that now. There's no innovative players really, and we have so much stuff around us to do it, right? And you can use electronic music to your advantage, especially as like with you, like you have the electric drums, you have all that kind of stuff, and you're going to be working on it. All that kind of stuff is like what brings about that innovativeness. Same thing with like Van Halen, that necessity to create something that hasn't been created, or a sound that you have in your head and you don't have the tools to do it, but you have something that can maybe get it done, and you're going to mod the shit out of it to get it done. And that's like that whole mantra, the just necessity, get it done. And that's Van Halen in a nutshell. Like his whole career is necessity. Sounds that no one ever did, instruments that no one ever has, doing things with amps that no one's ever done. Pretty wild stuff. And to have still been in our generation, like this isn't a guy that's been dead for decades, like our Hendrixes and stuff like that. It's a guy who just passed, and he was still influential to that day and going forward, right?
I think of like Howard Stern said it best. Like when Eddie Van Halen died, he was like commenting. I was like, "Here's this guy, Eddie Van Halen, who's was so good, and all these tens of thousands of hours of practicing and everything, and all the skill he had.
Yeah.
And he was like one guy that could do that. And now when he died, he's like, okay, that's gone. Like, sure, we have recordings of it now, and like, but I'm like, it's gone.
Like I said, like like Hendrix is dead, but look how many people it lives on in those players. Like, Van Halen's dead, but like even when he was still alive, the stuff that he did in his youth was being like bred into guitar players like us, and like even the guys that were relatively the same age as Van Halen, like Steve Vai and all those guys that, like they took it and ran as well. And like you still have guys like Steve Vai, you have the Tosin Abasis that are taking that torch and really going with it. So like, yeah, he's gone, but it's definitely in a lot of players. You hear it in a lot of players, and I think it will continue on. And I think the fact that when he died, like all those sales went back up, like all these kids were buying Van Halen records, and that's, that happens every time someone dies. Like it's unfortunate that, while they're
Except,
around,
except Billie Eilish fans.
yeah, yeah.
Remember, she was on like what on like some late night show, and like they asked her about Van Halen. She had no clue who Van Halen was.
Yeah, and I mean,
what?
Yeah, I mean, and that's fair. Like they don't have to know who he is. I mean, she's not really in that realm of music, right? Then that's the detachment that a lot of the youth have. Like they just don't really get what preceded the music that they have now to kind of learn how to take it forward. They just have everything set up. Like, well, I got everything set up on this pad. Like, but why? How did you get that to that pad? Like, why is it? Why do you even have a pad? Like, what sound is that? Like, like guys like us, like analog guys that like play drums, guitar, keyboards, anything that's within the analog and digital realm, know how it was achieved. A lot of the youth don't know because it's already there. They don't want to know. It's like, well, if you knew how that shit was achieved and the people that helped achieved it, your voice and like your tapestry, your palette would be a hell of a lot better for it. So like hopefully maybe the Billie Eilish, like maybe that brings a lot more fans that way, because she's gonna know, oh, who's this Van Halen guy? Oh shit, I remember all of those songs that my parents listening to and all that kind of shit. And maybe people listen to it again and inspire more guitar players, youthful guitar players, and just like innovative musicians, not even just guitar player, bass, drums, keyboards, whatever. This is more innovative, because that's pretty much what Van Halen again is in a nutshell, is the innovator. Innovated a lot of shit and kind of continued to do so. That's what people should take these days. Like from that, it's like, man, like look what he did. He invented shit. Like not many people.
Even like Van Halen with a lot of people like overlook that everyone's like focused on Eddie and everything, but they like a lot of people don't give Alex a lot of credit. I'm like, that's one of the best drummers ever.
Yeah, guy's always in the pocket. He was he had fun with time signatures and just playing things odd. Like again, like Vinnie Paul and Dimebag, getting back to those guys, like they took that thing and kind of ran with it. You hear it, you hear it in his drumming, you hear it. Yeah, the brothers, you hear it in their drumming, and they both kind of had the same backstory of who's playing guitar, who's playing drums, kind of thing, and switching back and forth. But yeah, like those guys took it and ran, and that's a like, it's a really sad shame that we've lost those two at their age, because like they're the new Van Halen, right? Like they kind of had that exact Van Halen kind of the equation right there.
Yeah,
we could have continued to do cool shit, but yeah, unfortunately we didn't get to keep them. Right, but
sad.
Yeah, and then like Van Halen giving Dimebag that guitar, like that's cool shit. Like
that's epic. Really,
yeah.
That's like.
Thanks for. I understand that you took the torch from me and you made it something of your own and continued it and showed me love throughout the whole thing. Not like turning your back on, like, oh, I'm doing tapping, but I'm not Van Halen. Like, fuck off. You have that skill because of Van Halen. It's popular, and you made it. It's popular because of Van Halen, right? So all those guys paid their respects, and he got his due when he passed, right? they're big Kiss and Van Halen fans. So what do they get? A Kiss casket and a Van Halen guitar. Like, yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. And yeah, again with Michael Anthony, like everyone in Van Halen, regardless of the singer, like they're all uniquely talented musicians, and brought something to the table that wasn't really being done at the time.
David Lee Roth,
his showmanship is bar none.
He was
right?
like, he was all about ego. I'm like, that's why he left Van Halen in 1984 and everything. He was all about ego. It's like, oh, I'm bigger than Van Halen. I'm like, oh, I'm the man, you know.
Yeah, and like get to that, and like he put out some really good albums, and they didn't pick up like any of the Halen stuff. Like Eat 'Em and Smile with fucking, you have, I can't remember who's on drums on that album, but you have Steve Vai and Billy Sheehan on bass. You have a fucking powerhouse of a band, like almost an infallible band. You shouldn't, like, it didn't do well. Like it did okay. Like Yankee Rose was, I think, the only hit that he had off of that fucking thing. And that album has incredible guitar work on it. It has, like, you know, it's very Van Halen with Steve Vai doing his thing, but didn't pick up. He had Jason Becker before Becker was stricken with ALS.
I saw them here in my city, but it was with Sammy Hagar was in the band Chickenfoot. It was him and Michael Anthony, and they had Joe Satriani on guitar, and on drums, I think it was
Pat Smith,
the guy from Red Hot Chili Peppers,
something
like that, on drums. So it was like Chickenfoot was like amazing band, and so they played here one summer, like 2005, and I saw them, and it was like still great. They played some Van Halen stuff, and everything.
Of course.
But like, you know, it was really half of the Van Hagar era of Van Halen. So.
Like when I saw the Circle, like Anthony and Sammy Hagar, right? The same kind of idea, but they just did like Sammy tunes. They did Montrose, Sammy, Van Halen tunes.
Well, that was the thing too with Sammy Hagar. He could play David Lee Roth tunes. He could play all the tunes, whereas David Lee Roth, like when they reunited with David Lee Roth in 2007, you didn't see them performing any Sammy Hagar tunes.
Oh, fuck no.
Because he couldn't sing that shit, you know.
But imagine, put fucking David Lee Roth singing Right Now.
Right now, woo!
Yeah, right now, baby, woo!
like you even saw like back. You see the behind the scenes. It's on YouTube.
Yeah.
When they're on Jimmy Kimmel, and he's spinning the whole metal thing, like doing this ninja stuff. He smacks himself in the nose, makes him breaks the nose. And they have to like take him off stage and everything for like 20 minutes, figure what's going on. In the meantime, Eddie Van Halen, you know, him and Alex are just like, you know, just soloing.
Oh yeah.
Just doing everything while trying to figure out what the fuck's going on with David Lee Roth. And he comes out with his whole freaking, his nose is broken and everything. Like,
yeah,
but also even his performance in that show, it's like he wouldn't shut up. Like, sing the songs. He's like, you see over there, like you over there, we used to play over there. Like he's talking, and the band's playing the songs, and he's just like talking. It's like, sing the song, like.
You know, like that kind of injury probably would have hindered, you know, most vocalists. But since he's not that great, it wouldn't have mattered. He could have just gave it his all, because that's his thing. Is what saves him from having a good voice is his showmanship. Like even if you have like 50% of the voice and you have the other half of your showmanship kind of kicking in, should be all right. But like, yeah, he just ends up doing the vaudeville shit, like, and badly and really cringeworthy. Oh shit! Did you ever see that video where he's in a hotel and he walks by a room and they're like cranking Van Halen, so he knocks on the fucking door. Like kids open the door and he's like, "Hey, I'm fucking David Lee Roth." They have no fucking idea who he is. No idea who this guy is. They just think it's some fucking like fancy dress wearing dude, and he's like, hey, and they're like, yeah, man, cool, like fucking right
Like,
on.
that's me.
Listen to me over there, hey, and like they're like, who? We're calling security. Like, get the fuck out of here, you crazy old man. Like,
That's
oh,
sad.
man, oh, that had to hurt, man. And that's when he was doing his like DJ shit. He was doing like that electronic. I don't know if you've seen that, but he has like an electronic band thingy that he does DJ.
I remember hearing David Lee Roth,
Yeah, they did like
and
a
he was on this night show once, like probably 10 years ago,
Yeah.
and he's doing this like swing version of Jump. Might as well jump. He's like sitting there, like hands in his pockets, and like, just, like swing, like, oh my god, you've fallen, like.
I love how this went from a Van Halen tribute to it. Let's bash the shit out of David Lee Roth. I love it. Because yeah, he's
Did you ever watch you see the movie The Dirt?
Oh yeah, yeah.
You know, Motley Crue movie. See the David Lee Roth cameo on that?
Mm-hmm.
He's talking about how David Lee Roth was hanging out in their thing. It's like sort of like mirror falls on his head. It's like, it's all right, man. You know, it's like, it was staring like it's like doing cocaine. It's like,
yeah.
it's everyone's staring at. That was in the heyday of Van Halen too. You know.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's like in the peak.
That's another band I like too. I love Motley Crue. Like, you know.
Yeah.
Mick Mars is one of my favorite guitar players. Mick Mars, fucking love Mick Mars. Kickstart my heart.
Another fucking good Whammybar tune.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. That's one of the best. But yeah. Tommy Lee. Tommy Lee's probably my favorite drummer. I saw him here in Halifax in 2006. Tom Lee was like flying from drum set to drum set in the ceiling. So I was respected what he did for his drum solos.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, like he wasn't much in the crazy skill department as like doing the craziest shit, but he was always in the pocket. The fact that he would go to a roller coaster drum kit is pretty outlandish and insane. And then you mix those two together, it's amazing. It's like the same thing with David Lee Roth, like in his prime. Like you got 50%, like, you know, he's in the pocket kind of guy, he's good, but his showmanship is like bar none. You mix those together and you have just a really good fucking combination for that star. Like, it's insane. Who the fuck thinks like I'm gonna put my drums in a roller coaster and just start spinning around? Yeah.
And it was hilarious. Like the very last show, New Year's Eve, 2015, the very last show, the roller coaster breaks down, and he's like midair, like it's just like, oh, the very last day.
Yeah, they had to get a guy up there to like get him out or some shit.
Yeah,
right?
you can see it in the video. I have the DVD. Like, you can see them climbing the ladder, like, oh shit, we're he's trying to stall the crowd, like they're trying to climb up, get him out.
Yeah, think how many times that thing runs and how many times it doesn't fail. Like that's insane. That's a lot of work. Like I'm a stagehand, so like building that kind of shit is fucked, and like for them to have that kind of consistency is insane. And then on the last night, it's like, yeah, I've had enough. I'm not doing this anymore. Get off me. Tired.
See if they get to do it again. You know, they're supposed to have their stadium tour this summer, but of course, you know, COVID and everything. So that's all put off till next year, but see if that even happens next year. So.
Yeah, well, I mean, what's his face was getting in shape and everything like that, so it was kind of looking like maybe it would be far better than the last tour that they did because he started my heart. Like you can't be doing that. And people are paying that kind of money for tickets, and you can't even sing your own lyrics. Like it's not, you can't be doing that shit.
Well, even my favorite band too, AC/DC.
Mm-hmm.
Their new album releases next week, and of course, like usually they do a massive stadium tour, right? But I'm like, see if that happens now.
I'm sure they will. Well, when everything opens back up and whatnot, they'll definitely get back to that because most of the clubs have all shut down, so they have no choice but to play arenas, right?
Yeah,
Really,
and of course now the whole Back in Black lineup is back together. So
yep, yeah, dude.
Other than Malcolm, which of course their nephew Stevie,
yeah,
filling in with Malcolm, but still it's like
Malcolm's
Phil Rudd back on drums and everything is. Just,
yeah.
Still sound great.
Yeah. Have you heard the song, the new one?
Oh yeah.
Great. Yeah, it's got everything you need for AC/DC.
That's my favorite band of all time, AC/DC. I'm like, I know.
Yeah, I saw them. Yeah, he was like Angus Young was like one of the biggest influences for me when I first picked up the guitar. But I saw them for the Ballbreaker tour.
I saw them in 2009 in Moncton, New Brunswick.
Yeah,
and it was a big outdoor concert, biggest outdoor concert, and so like 100,000 people there, and I was right up to the front, and it was the whole original Back in Black lineup there. Last tour Malcolm was on, and it was just great.
When I saw him, I got to run up to, like, I don't know if he still does it, but he had like Angus would go up on the catwalk, and then there was like a plexiglass circle that goes up in the air with him in it, and he does the fucking curly dance in it.
Yep.
Like, he did that, he came back down, everyone runs up to the catwalk to shake his hand, and I got to shake his hand. I was like, fucking right.
Oh, that's awesome.
Angus. Yeah, and that concert was fucking amazing. Watching Bon Scott like sneak off to have cigarettes in between like solos and shit like that, going behind like where it's foggy enough, but not enough to like you could still see him light up a butt, and he's going up on the little fucking escalator to go up to the top thing of the stage, and you can still see him smoking butts. Like, oh,
I can't wait to pick my cousin's brain. I have this new cousin that just recently I haven't met him yet. He's like one of my cousins, but he's like a phenomenal, like multiple instrumentalist. Like he plays fiddle, guitar, everything. Yeah. But I'm like he's played all over the world. And like he's played on stage, I guess, with Angus Young in Australia. Like he's played on stage with Angus Young. Like so I can't. And numerous other musicians. So I'm like, I can't wait to pick his brain. Like next time I go up to Cape Breton, we're gonna jam. And I'm like, I just can't wait. He makes guitars and everything. I can't wait to get him to make me a guitar.
Yeah, totally.
I'm like, just pick his brain about like, you were on stage with Angus fucking Young. Like, who knows other stories he has.
You still have your hearing.
I was like, wow, like decades of like just amazing musical stories. Like, fuck, so jealous. If I was on stage with Angus Young, it'd be amazing. Like be like a kid next to me.
That was like when we were in Sweden, having Richie Blackmore tell us. You guys were great and all, like, but you can't smile. It's rock and roll. I'm fucking in tears laughing. I'm like, fuck you. I'm like, I'm just played in front of like 10,000 fucking people. I'm gonna smile. Like, it's fucking rock and roll. I get it though. Like that's the old school shit. Like, don't look happy on stage. God forbid you're happy to be on something that you were dying to do for ages, right? Like, no, I'm gonna keep this smile, Richie Blackmore. But we had like being in that element, man, like hanging out, like all the stars we got to hang out with there, and all that shit. It's like, yeah, man, like that's what it's all about. Just that network, hanging out and hearing the road stories and just getting other people's experience. It's cool. So yeah, definitely go hang out with your cousin and feast on all that info. Get everything you can. Right.
Well, I jump at any opportunity with it, hanging with musicians.
Yeah, of course.
Anyone's just like, oh, just let's jam. Like if I was there with you, I'm like, oh, let's jam. Like
yeah, it's cool. I got drums down here.
I'm just like, I just like jump at that. Any opportunity.
Yeah, man.
It's like,
That's
why
what it's
not?
about.
This is the best fun, you know.
Yeah. Oh man, I love it.
So you have any what's your favorite Van Halen song? Or if you could
Well,
pick
we already kind of talked about Humans Being. I mean, that's not really a big guitar tune, but that's a fucking good tune.
I love how you picked that too, because that's
Yeah.
overlooked. I love that song. And that's
Yeah.
an overlooked song. A lot of people don't even remember that. They're like,
Yeah.
wait, because it's not on any album, right? So
It's on the Twister soundtrack, and it's on the
exactly.
yeah. And like even the guitar work, if you listen to the end of, I don't know if that's on the soundtrack. It should be, but like the orchestrated parts of Humans Being, like throughout the whole movie, it's still just the fucking but it's the orchestra doing it, and then like you have then Van Halen's just kind of soloing over top of it. That is fucking incredible. Like the stuff that he did there, even the stuff he did with Michael Jackson, all that kind of shit was really good.
Beat it,
Yeah.
beat it solo. Yeah.
Yeah, that,
Apparently he did like that in one take too.
well,
Like
because
he just went in there and he did that solo in one take.
he didn't know who it was, and he thought it was gonna be shit. He's like, this isn't gonna go fucking anywhere. So he just kind of fucking, all over that fucking tune. He didn't even use a real amp. I'm pretty sure that's going through like a DS1 or some sort of just a pedal going into the thing, into the board. And then yeah, think about that. He's like, yeah, this shit ain't going nowhere. Fuck this. Meanwhile, a fucking huge tune, and he's got to go do the fuck. He's got to go play live with him and all that stuff. Like, even for a guy like Van Halen to sit there and be like, yeah, this ain't going nowhere, and then be like, and just kind of do like the little solo over top of it, and it ended up being a really cool solo. But yeah, to do that with thinking that it's just trash, that's not going anywhere. Meanwhile, it's fucking going to be the top selling album for years, and that song's one of the top selling songs too. And it's got Van Halen on. Like, that's fucked. He's everywhere. Even if he didn't want to be there, he was there.
Eddie Van Halen's even in Back to the Future.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's like, he actually did that. He was like, pushing the cassette tape. Eddie Van Halen. Like, well, I guess Eddie Van Halen says it was just noise. Like, he was just playing random noise. But I'm like, it's him playing for Back to the Future.
Yeah. Fucking awesome. Yeah. So yeah, him and Steve Vai have that same thing in common, where they're like big soundtrack guys. Like Vai did all the like a lot of shit. He did all the Bill and Ted's. He did a lot of
I had a podcast episode of the Bill and Ted movies. Yeah. Steve Vai even did Rufus Solo.
Yeah.
He did like when they did that was literally a Steve Vai.
Yeah, it's all Steve Vai doing his crazy like harmony shit. And the new one, it's Tosin Abasi, so there's that torch being passed again, right? So Abasi does all the air guitar stuff, and he does like a good vibe. Like you could tell he's trying to keep it like the vibe, like all those crazy little things, right? But yeah, man, like there's very few guitar players that have that luxury, I guess, to be in films and movies and all this kind of stuff, where they probably in their heads are like, this is just a few extra bucks, but ends up being like loved and cherished by so many guitar players and like movie lovers and shit like that, regardless if they know who's playing it. They're like, it made that movie, right? Yeah. It's really cool. Yeah, he's been everywhere. It's crazy.
Yeah, I love those movies.
Yeah.
Love the original Bill and Ted.
Yeah. All of them. I think all three of them did. I think they're
Triumph all. Video. It's like, that's why we need Eddie Van Halen.
Like, man, so many cool things that came from him. Like, even like when you fool around on guitars, to think of like pinch harmonics, anything like that. Like, the guy just insane. And like how much fun I could just like sit here and noodle and not have a care in the world, and like be able to have these little tricks to do to have fun instead of just playing like chords and shit. Now you can just like stupid shit like that. Like no one would ever think that would even work, and it just does. It's so fucking cool. I wish I had
Totally.
wish I had a phaser because that really adds the. Yeah, it's really cool shit. It sounds so cool. Tapping on a guitar just sounds really fucking cool. He also did like the double tapping too. Like, like just anything like that. He kind of did the. I don't know if I can do it really. I can do it better as a bass player, but he does like is it what song is it? Boss Control or something like that. He just does like a kind of like a weird slap tappy kind of thing where he's like slapping on the neck with his thumb and then uses like the side of his finger to kind of hit the whatever frets he's going to hit. Like cool things like that, right? And then you get guys that started doing like actual tapping or a slap like you would on a bass. Like Halen kind of opened up the doors for all those guys that are doing all these kind of crazy, wacky things. Really cool shit. I'm gonna end up playing guitar the rest of the day now.
Nothing wrong with that.
Even that, like his, it's hard for me to do it. It's such a weird technique. I do it more, kind of like the newer way of doing it. But when his tremolo picking, like that's how I do it. But like Van Halen has like this weird, like stretch out for it, where he wings out his fingers and kind of does like a weird fluttering thing, and it gives it a whole different sound because he's kind of blocking the other strings to get that, because he's really hammering it on. Where if I use the smaller jazz pick like the more modern guys do, you choke up on it and you get, and some of the modern guys close fist it. However you want to do it, but like the Van Halen way is such like you have to have a lot of crazy ass control for that. Like I can barely do it. I did it on the SpongeBob tune just because I wanted to add that Van Halen element, and I wanted to really do it. But when you're tracking it, you can do it over and over again. You can see it. Like it's really hard to like articulate it, but when he gets that going at that speed, like it really attacks the string, and the clarity of it comes out a hell of a lot more, as if like when you kind of do it with this, when you do it with a smaller pick. And but for me, it's just more comfortable because I have more control over it, because like that's such a again innovative technique that no one really does other than Halen, because a lot of guys learned how to do it closed fisted or with like a couple fingers out, but like he does like this kind of fucking crazy, it's hard to explain it. Like you can't even get it. Like you have to have a really thick pick, and he just fucking flutters that thing, and it's such a cool technique to get, because when you do get it, it's really articulated. But yeah, man, what other techniques? What other things did he invent?
Oh, not just guitar techniques, but like so much guitar hardware. And as you showed the other day on Facebook, the EVH amp.
Yep.
There.
Yeah. It's like one of how many? Because he's had, like his original one was like a Plexi, either a JMP or a Plexi, and dimed the fuck out, and then bridged the input connections to get more gain. And then, like I said, that Variac, that thing that douses the voltage that goes into the amp. That's what gives him that sound. On this newer amp, on his, because he's had the PV after the Marshalls, he went to PV, and then obviously they have the 5150 block, and then they have the 5150 regular. And then when he left PV, he went to Fender, and then they're the ones that make the current EVHs. I had the first edition, which is like the 6L6, and then I like that amp. It was really cool, but I'm an EL34 guy. That's just kind of the flavor that I like. It's a little bit warmer, and you could still get the shrill out of it if you want, like the 6L6s are kind of known for. But people really hated the blue channel, like the crunch channel on the new EL34 ones, and because they were expecting the old channel from the 6L6. But even when they released it, they're like, this amp was supposed to come out sounding like Van Halen's Plexi. And so basically it has like a thing in there. It's a capacitor that that emulates, that kind of gives you that sag feeling that you've turned the voltage down. It's not necessarily the same, but you can get a pretty damn close replica of that sound without having to go through all that shit of getting the variac and all that stuff. Now people hate that. I love it. I use it for Jello, and I use it for low lives if I need to, because it's got a vintage sound to it. It's got an older, that Plexi, like just 70s kind of vibe to it. But I recently got it modded from Chris Church, and he got like Dave Friedman and all those guys that do Friedman amps and shit to help him with it. So I needed a switch that turned that off, that capacitor off, because I want, for the other bands like Temple or anything that's heavier, I need that lifted out. I need that full power, that without sag. So they actually went ahead and put a switch in there. So basically I treat it as like a vintage modern, so I can go to like Van Halen's brown sound, and I can turn it off and then go to like his newer sound that he's been using with the EVH amps. So it's super versatile. And I wouldn't have done like modding amps is a Van Halen thing. So to come down to that and be like, yeah, I'm gonna mod a Van Halen amp, like that's taking that thing again and flipping it around. I'm gonna mod an amp that's already kind of been a modded sound, and it worked out great. I fucking love it. Like right now it's on the modern side of things. Like I can go down and turn it off if you want to hear what it sounds like in the brown sound kind of thing. It almost sounds like shit, but it's like good because you got to push it a bit more. So it's a really different sound. You want to hear it?
Sure.
So I can flip the switch on it, so it should sound a little different. So like if you A/B it, like this one has like the other one was a little sharper. Bold comes to mind. It's kind of bolder, but like this sounds, this has more of like a vintage, like saggy kind of tone to it. So yeah, it just has more of his older sound, I guess. A little bit flatter almost. People kind of describe it as like a wool being put over the tone. I think it sounds like close enough to his old Plexi without having to have 100 fucking watts and all that kind of shit. And like my amp's in the basement and I'm just running a cable down there. Crazy shit like that. Yeah. Fun with amps. Fuck.
I always love when I can like crank it up through a big amp.
Yeah.
Loud.
Yeah, yeah. So it's pretty loud down there, and it's nice because I can be up here and even take off my headphone and. I love the horsey. Craziness.
Reminds me when back in high school, I remember my favorite time jamming was like I used to take home the big keyboard amp.
Mm-hmm.
So I used to love plugging my guitar into, and like I take it home and I put it in the garage outside and like hook up my pedals and everything and like crank it up to high hell and like literally like the freaking you could hear me for miles. Like
Fucking
I
right.
was sitting there like ripping it up. It's like I loved it. Oh,
Yeah, man. I love being able to crank it. I've been using until we moved into this house. Like I had, the fractal units, like the amp emulators. I had one of those. I've had like an 80A for years, which is kind of the same thing, but like they're great, especially if you're in like an apartment or whatever, because you can kind of get that same cranked amp tone, but through headphones and whatnot. But when I went back to amps, it was needed. It was definitely needed because like you can't get the same. You can't be in the same room. You're not in the room with that cabinet. You're not like if I'm in a basement right now ripping, like it's a whole other ball game than being in the studio like where I am now and just having speakers or headphones. Like it's not the same. It's not the same at all. And as much as they try to sell it as like, hey, this thing is like having a real amp, fuck no, it's not like having a real amp. I had it for 8 years and it's the best recording device I've ever had. But it doesn't beat being in my basement or being in a room with an amp that's cranked and being bombarded by your amp. Like you can't beat that. It's not the same as being in the headphones. Like Van Halen never did that. He did all this shit. Fucking cranked. Absolutely cranked to high heaven.
oh yeah.
You know?
Hours would be nice, like plugging your guitar to a big wall of Marshall amps.
Mm-hmm.
That was like, that's got to be amazing. It's like, whoa, it's like to
Wall.
fill something to fill a stadium. It's like,
Yeah.
whoa, it's like just plug into that and like let it rip.
Yeah.
Got to be
Yeah.
amazing, These guys get to do that. Like,
Yeah. I got the test doing that shit, so it's well, I mean, the Sweden show I got, like that was pretty much that. But like being a tech in Toronto in the falls, like you get to crank through a lot of stuff in these big theaters and these big arenas and shit. It sounds so cool. It's a different thing to get. Like you need monitors. Without the monitors, that's so much delay coming back from the arena or the back of the theater. But man, it's it's different. It's like being just ensconced in fucking sound. You almost play better. You get kind of everything's feeding back. You're just you're just in it. It's such a cool feeling, and to be those guys doing it fucking daily. Oh,
yeah,
you know?
amazing. It's like
Yeah, like I'm dying right
regular
now.
day in the office.
We haven't played gigs since everything shut down, and it's like it's just craving being back on stage because like it's usually every like we're always playing either with it's Jello or Temple or Low Lives. Like it's I'm always playing and I'm always surrounded by amps and loud music. I fucking miss it. At least like with the one band we've been rehearsing here, which has been great. Getting back into live shit, but we also do things in our in-ears now because it's just rehearsing with loud amps all the time isn't really the healthiest choice. So we do in-ears, which is great. But every once in a while we let loose and just play with our amps too. So it's been nice to do that, but nothing beats being playing live and having that feeling.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to have you back on the podcast and talk about your whole history with
Yeah, sure.
guitar playing and Green Jello and
Yeah.
all that stuff. This has mainly been a Van
Awesome.
Halen podcast, but like
Yeah.
so.
I mean, well, yeah, because like my character in Jello is based on Van Halen, right? He's
Eddie Van Jello.
Eddie Van Jello, that little fucker. Yeah, yeah, his backstory is hilarious because it's basically um he was he's like birthed from Sla Mestra from Guar and Van Halen, so that's how he was born. That's how he came to be. Sla Mestra from Guar and Eddie Van Halen had a torrid love affair, and they left me after 9 months. Valerie, fucking Sly Master left me in a swamp or left him in a swamp. Sorry, and then he just kind of worked his way, playing gigs, learning to be just like his old pa that left him. It's a pretty tragic story. But yeah, that's kind of the funny background story of EVJ, the bastard son. So, yeah, everyone's talking about fucking Wolfgang, but EVJ was there before Wolfgang. They just don't want to admit it. Can't admit that love child.
So I'm gonna let you go here soon. You want to take us out and some Eddie Van Halen inspired
Yeah,
guitar
sure.
playing?
Yeah, I'll hack through some stuff for you. Thanks for having me, brother. Look forward to the next time we meet.
Definitely.
All right. One last thing, Van Halen with the tap. Tell me what this sounds like. I'll give you a hint. Nintendo.
Yeah.
It's Bowser's Castle. When I
Yeah.
teach kids how to play fucking like how to tap, I try to show them how to do that because it kind of a neat little thing. Be able to play some Bowser. But yeah, thanks, brother, man. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely. I'm glad we finally did this, and yeah, it's been great, and we're definitely have a sequel, and we'll talk about your own guitar adventures with Green Jello and beyond.
Totally. Would be a pleasure, man.
Especially Silence of the Sponge, and love that tune. That's a great tune, and of course, the upcoming Back Alley Dentist, and yeah,
And
it's
we got more coming up
great.
too.
So well, definitely,
man.
definitely looking forward to picking your brain about all that stuff. So
Yeah,
it's
man,
been great to have a fellow Axeman and
Thanks.
talking about Green Eddie Van Halen. You know,
Eddie-
almost said Eddie Van Dillo. But yeah, definitely, it's I could have had a podcast just talking about Eddie Van Halen by myself, but I'm like,
yeah.
no, you got to have a fellow guitar player.
Yeah, man. I wish I could have brought my buddy Mike Palermo, the guy who builds my guitars. He, if there's a Van Halen like nut, it is definitely my buddy Mike Palermo. He is. You can check out his videos, anybody, if you're looking online. But Palermo Guitars. But he usually does Van Halen songs for his demos of the guitars and everything. So go check it out. That guy can fucking like really wail Van Halen to the point where he went to his house and stole a golf ball off of his property. Like, so like, yeah, that guy, I got all my Van Halen shit from him. Like he was my muse for Van Halen, because it was Van Halen or nothing when I was working at that music store. And I thank him every day for that. So thanks, Mike Palermo, for, driving Van Halen deep within my soul.
This has been great. I'm finally got to meet you and talk to you and stuff, and we'll definitely be talking lots in the future.
Definitely.
And we're gonna definitely get to know a fellow Axeman, and definitely I'm gonna pick your brain a lot about guitar and stuff. Maybe take a couple lessons from you.
Yeah, man,
so,
for sure. I'm gonna be putting up like videos for all the Green Jello stuff too, because everyone asked me to show them the solos and some of the stuff from all the songs. So I'll be putting that up soon too, so we can always go over that if you want to learn how to play some of those songs or those solos.
Sweet. Looking forward to it.
I did.
Anyways, good talking to you, Derek, and this has been awesome. So,
brother, you have a good one.
You too.
Peace. See ya, man.
See ya.